Good day, everyone. This is Mary Ann Nilias Apat, a MAID EM student of Northeastern Mindanao State University. We are now here to learn about experimental and quasi-experimental research. Okay, what is experimental research? Experimental research or experimentation is a research conducted using a scientific approach using two or more variables. The first variable is a constant that you can manipulate to see the differences caused in the second variable. Most studies under quantitative research methods are experimental in nature. A good example of quantitative research method, the research should establish a notable cause and effect. What is meant by quantitative research? Quantitative research is referred to as the process of collecting as well as analyzing numerical data. It is generally used to find patterns, averages, predictions, as well as cause effect relationships between the variables being studied. What is quantitative research example? An example of quantitative research is the survey conducted to understand the amount of time a doctor takes to tend to a patient when the patient walks into the hospital. What are the characteristics of quantitative research? We have first the large sample size, structured research methods, highly reliable outcome, reusable outcome, close-ended questions, numerical outcome, generalization of outcome, and prior study. We have here the main purpose of experimental research. The purpose of the experimental research strategy is to establish the existence of a cause and effect relationship between two variables. To accomplish this goal, an experiment manipulates one variable while a second variable is measured and other variables are controlled. Experimental research is a kind of study that rigidly follows a scientific research design. It involves testing or attempting to prove a hypothesis by way of experimentation. As such, it uses one or more independent variables, manipulating them and then using them on one or more dependent variables. How do you do experimental research? Okay, you're going to consider variables and how they are related. Write a specific testable hypothesis. Design experimental treatments to manipulate your independent variable. Okay, number one, define your variables. Number two, write your hypothesis. Three, design your experimental treatments. And four, assign your subjects to treatment groups. Another research is a quasi-experimental research. This is similar to experimental research in that there is manipulation of an independent variable. It differs from experimental research because either there is no control group, no random selection, no random assignment, and no active manipulation. This is the most common type of quasi-experimental design. Example, non-equivalent groups design. You hypothesize that a new after-school program will lead to a higher grades. You choose two similar groups of children who attend different schools, one of which implements the new program while the other does not. What is quasi-experimental versus experimental research? With an experimental research study, the participants in both the treatment and control or the product non-users groups are randomly assigned. Quasi-experimental research designs do not randomly assign participants to treatment or control groups for comparison. Where is quasi-experimental design used? Quasi-experimental studies encompass a broad range of non-randomized intervention studies. These designs are frequently used when it is not logistically feasible or not ethical to conduct a randomized, controlled trial, the gold standard of causal research design. What are the characteristics of quasi-experimental designs? The quasi-experimental design does not randomly assign groups to the participants. Rather, it studies their nature and then treats them accordingly. Why would you use a quasi-experimental design? Quasi-experimental studies can be used to measure the impact of large-scale interventions or policy changes where data are reported in aggregate and multiple measures of an outcome over time. Example is the monthly rates are collected. Why is it sometimes a good idea to conduct quasi-experiments? Understand why quasi-experiments can be a useful research design. One good reason is that it may be the only possible way to study the impact of a natural event. For example, how residents cope after a flood. External validity may be higher than true experiment as it allows for experiment in natural settings. Is quasi-experimental research quantitative or qualitative? Quasi-experiments resemble quantitative and qualitative experiments, but lack random allocation of groups or proper controls, so firm statistical analysis can be very difficult. Okay, that's all for experimental and quasi-experimental research.